This is Detention Officer Rachel Harris. She was conducting routine cell searches when an inmate, Bobby Ruiz, allegedly jumped on her back and bit part of her right ear off.
And the next thing I know, he jumped on my back and pushed me to the ground and bit my ear.
Now part of Rachel Harris's right ear is gone, after the inmate who bit her swallowed it.
The whole back part is completely gone, so it's not rounded anymore, it's just straight down.
The attack could have been worse, but a few inmates came to Rachel's rescue. This surveillance video inside the jail shows Ricky Schilling, Ferd, running up the stairs to help.
I had her down on the ground. He was kneeing her in the back several times. And then once I was going up the stairs, I heard her scream.
Andrew Davis also helped out.
And I pulled him, the guy that was attacking her, off of her. And then you could see blood like real thick behind her ear, and the guy had blood like around his mouth.
Both men ended up getting hurt in the scuffle, but say they would do it again.
I mean, I have a mom, I have a sister, I have a daughter. I mean, I wouldn't want nobody to ever do that to somebody in my family.
We're all human, you know what I mean? And regardless, like if we're wearing the stripes or the browns or whatever, and it was just the right thing to do.
Just one day after the attack, Rachel came back to see the inmates.
I just want to say thank you for those of you that did help me.
Rachel said she felt she owed it to those who jumped into action.
How much does it mean that these guys came to your rescue?
I mean, it meant a lot, more than you would think it would, because you don't expect these guys to, when you have one of them on top of you, you don't expect the rest of them to come help you.
And the inmates' reaction to her visit, perhaps just as surprising as their heroic actions.
I kind of brought tears to my eyes, to be honest with you. I kind of got choked up because I don't think nobody deserved that.
She almost made me cry, you know, because I could hear like some of the sadness in her voice.
This is Gary Grimm. He was a prison guard at Parker County District Courthouse in Weatherford, Texas. In 2016, Gary slumped over in his chair and passed out.
You know, fell over, and I thought it looked like an act or something.
Immediately, an inmate recognizes something's wrong. Then the entire holding cell takes notice. While Grimm lies motionless, the inmates break free. His firearm now up for grabs. The inmates have a golden opportunity to escape, attack, or even harm the guard. Instead, they decide to help. They bang on the walls and yell, desperately trying to get someone's attention.
Instead of overtaking me and taking my gun and killing me, or taking somebody hostage or whatever and escaping, they looked at me as a human being.
Eventually, courthouse officers hear the commotion and rush in. The officers order the inmates back into the holding cell, call for backup, and then check Grimm's vitals. He has no pulse. Another officer enters and begins chest compressions. Minutes later, an emergency medical team arrives. When additional chest compressions don't work, the EMTs apply a defibrillator patch to his chest.
Stand clear. Shock delivered.
And then they had to shock me twice to get my heart restarted.
The jolt restarts Grimm's heart, and he's rushed to the hospital, having just suffered a massive heart attack. Gary Grimm never thought the men he was tasked with watching would actually watch over him.
I get emotional. If they wished harm for me, all they would have had to do is sit there and do nothing.
20 months later, Gary was set to go under an open heart surgery, a last option for his health.
God wasn't ready for me.
But it's a chance he wouldn't even have were it not for the efforts of those men that morning, inmates he always treated with respect.
But I understand that they're human beings and they're men just like I am. And, you know, I'm not here to judge why they were locked up.
Gary was forced to medically retire back in December. He said he never personally got to say thank you or meet any of those inmates, but he would, quote, be damn glad to shake their hand. This is Deputy Warren Hobbs. He was having cardiac issues and had passed out.
And he was leaned back like this, and he was out cold, and he was already losing his color.
He was breathing heavily. He wasn't moving the way he normally moves. And their biggest indicator is they said he took off his hat. Deputy Hobbs always wears a hat. and he took his hat off, and he was really sweating, and he was fanning himself with his hat. So the inmates already had an idea that Deputy Hobbs wasn't feeling well.
The inmates started banging on their doors. The sound was loud enough to wake the deputy. He wobbled to his feet and reached a control panel to open the cell doors.
So Smalls is assigned to a downstairs room, and he was the only one who could see what was happening to Deputy Hobbs initially. He saw Deputy Hobbs at the desk, and he saw him fall and hit the floor. So he was banging on his door. So he was the one who really sounded the alarm. Eventually, the whole unit was banging on their doors. They were all, banging, calling the deputy's name repeatedly.
And, just because we've made a mistake out there, it doesn't make us bad people. Just because they chose to be a police officer or deputy, it doesn't make them a bad people.
I didn't see him as an officer at that point. I just seen another human being going down, needing help.
And Deputy Hobbs later told me he didn't realize he had passed out. He had no idea that he had suffered an emergency. And he could hear deputy, deputy, Deputy Hobbs, deputy, deputy. And that's actually what woke him to the point that he was semi-conscious. And I think he looked up and he saw the inmates in 617 who had a direct, line of vision with him now that they were in their window looking down at his desk. And he popped their door open.
The inmates rushed out to help him, and then they radioed for help.
Hobbs beat you up. Central RT. 3 Mike. Officer needs 3 Mike. Officer needs help. For medical en route. Deputy assistant. What is the issue with? What is the problem with Deputy Hobbs?
Head injury.
What type of injury? Signal 4 has been requested en route.
Jail staff arrived in seconds.
So I have great respect for law enforcement and the job that they do. So for me, I had to save people. I couldn't just watch them and die like that.
Same goes for me. Deputy Hobbs is very respectful. He comes in the unit every night, respects every guy in here, and every guy respects him back. And so we didn't do anything for Deputy Hobbs that he would not have did for us, and there's not a doubt in my mind. He's a wonderful man, a good officer, and we're thankful for him, and we can't wait for him to get back to work.
The sheriff's office wrote about what happened on social media. The post said, quote, "Many people have strong opinions about law enforcement officers and criminals, but this incident clearly illustrates the potential goodness found in both."
This story beautifully illustrates that anyone is capable of greatness. And it also is a great reminder that it's not the uniform that makes the hero, it's the person wearing the uniform. These 3 inmates have very beautifully illustrated that anyone can be a hero, and we're deeply appreciative of them.
These inmates, in their striped prison uniforms, are breaking into a car, but sheriff's deputies are standing nearby, telling them, "Go right ahead."
The front door.
They aren't stealing a car, they're rescuing a baby.
Is she okay in there?
A 1-year-old girl named Dallas was accidentally locked inside an SUV.
You okay, baby?
After the parents called authorities for help, the group of Florida work release inmates who were nearby offered their special skill set.
The trustees are people who made mistakes. We're trying to rehabilitate them and get back in society.
The child's mother posted the video over the weekend saying, "Dad accidentally locked his keys inside with the girl. So before resorting to smashing a window, the inmates gave them another option. A couple of them pried open the door enough to slide a coat hanger inside and hit the unlock button."
Yes! Thank God! Woo!
Police were grateful for the inmates' skills, which they say can only be used under supervision.
Only when the deputy's around, we give permission, can you break into that car?
There were a few tears at the end.
Honey, was that stressful? It was just so funny, the irony, a police officer asking an inmate to break into a car.
But listen to this. Those inmates, by the way, were able to break into that SUV in just under 2 minutes. Now, if you're fans of Divorce Court, you may recognize this mom. She and her husband, Joe, appeared on the year before the incident.
My relationship has been really strained lately.
Everything worked out just fine for them, the same as it did for little Dallas.
Bye-bye.
This group of Georgia inmates made headlines for saving a deputy's life in Polk County.
We was back in this way right here. We was out weeding, touching up these graves for Father's Day.
A weekly work detail at this Polk County cemetery. took a potentially dangerous turn.
It just happened out of nowhere because like every day we work with him and he seems fine.
The detail officer watching this group of 6 inmates passed out after saying he did not feel well, even telling the inmates where his phone was in case something happened. And sure enough, something did.
I happened to look up and I seen the officer going, he was going to his knees in the spot right behind you. And when I seen him going down, I was like, I said, hey, you all right?
I was one of the ones that actually ran back and got somebody else.
They acted quickly.
He had his face down, he was breathing a little hard or whatever, and so we went over there and we turned him over and made sure he was okay.
Making split-second, possibly life-changing decisions.
First we took his gun belt off and let his gun belt to the side, and then we pulled his vest apart, and then we figured we better take it off in case I had to do CPR on him or something like that because he was in bad shape.
They found his phone in his pocket and dialed 911.
He was out for a minute and he wasn't really breathing. Then when he started breathing, he was breathing right, just real heavy and real fast.
His belt with gun, cell phone, and county van, all within the inmate's reach.
Anything could have been done, anything could have happened, but all the right things happened, and that's what makes that whole day just so much better.
Even though they wear stripes and he wears a badge.
They really stepped up in a time of crisis and showed that they care about my officers.
At that moment, the officer they consider family was hurting.
When that happened, in my opinion, it wasn't about who was in jail, who wasn't. It was about, a man was going down, what had to happen.
When the news broke, thousands of viewers have sent positive comments to the inmates.
From John Smith, time served on good behavior. Hey, thank you, John. We need that.
Right here, it says, give them all a second chance. They showed a genuine concern and passion for another human being.
And they was like, oh, we're so proud of you and stuff, and it's just real amazing, the reaction of the people, what they was doing for all of us.
This is Mary Patricia Jean. She was ready to take a plea deal and get out of jail.
Yes, Your Honor.
Her time behind bars earned her a broken hand and somewhat of a hero status, and this is why. On June 7, 2022, a female detention deputy at the Falkenberg jail is the target of a sneak attack by a scheming inmate who is armed with a pillowcase and shank. You see other inmates run over, including inmate Mary Jean, who jumps into action.
She said that she saw the deputy's feet in the air and she had to jump in as quick as she could, and that there was possibly a shank that she saw in the moment.
Court records show inmate Bridget Harvey and co-defendant April Colvin plotted an escape plan. They created a ruse where inmate Colvin faked an illness to lure the deputy into the bathroom. That's where Harvey would take over, assault the deputy, and take her keys to escape the pod.
She had no reason to do this and to jump in and save a deputy while she's an inmate. It shows that she really is a good person.
And this wasn't the first time Mary Jean has come to the rescue of a detention deputy. She did it 6 months earlier.
She did jump in again when a different inmate had attacked the deputy while she was on her computer.
That inmate is now facing more charges.
The court will adjudicate you guilty of your charges.
As for Mary Jean, she pled guilty to a drug charge and was sentenced to 1 year of drug treatment, followed by probation. She followed a drug treatment program to do a little healing that includes that combat wound for doing the right thing.